Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Honestly Wrestling Sucks podcast. We've taken a few month hiatus. I've been away. I'm off at uni now. A lot of shit's going on. Not been the best week, but we are here, and I'm once again joined by Dakota Cohen, all the way from Florida, the NXT reviewer for Wrestling Republic. How are you today, Dakota?
I'm great. Thanks for plugging my NXT 2.0 reviews. Also NXT UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I forgot about NXT UK. How's that been recently? How has it been?
So having fans back has been amazing. I wasn't able to watch it unfortunately last week due to Crown Jewel, and I had an extremely busy week this past week. So I've barely been able to watch any wrestling. But Crown Jewel was great. NXT UK the week before with fans back, definitely the atmosphere felt much better.
That's good.
The fans weren't extremely loud, but it was better than New Japan type of fans.
Oh yeah, yeah. And guys, if you're in the comments, make sure to give your opinions as well. And this isn't actually an honestly opinion, but maybe I'll throw it in. Throw it in. Start us off with one. New Japan has been incredibly hard to watch since fans have been silent. I know there's the clapping and all that. It doesn't do it for me. A big part of wrestling, and we said this throughout the pandemic, is that, is fans. And as soon as, the fans are taken out of it, it's very difficult. And even in small amounts, like, with fake crowd noise, that's better than what New Japan's been. It's consistently been, silence, the claps, and it's not felt the same. And also they've been hit by terrible bad luck since the pandemic started, whether it's one of their talent getting COVID, another one of their talent, in Kota Ibushi's case this week, doing a moonsault and landing on his arm, breaking his wrist while dislocating his shoulder. Like, what? Their luck has been through the roof awful. I know you watched more of the G1 than I did, though. What was your thoughts on the tournament as a whole?
So the G1 was, I would say, especially, I haven't watched all the G1s, but I would say that it was disappointing. However, for the lack of talent that they had, I think that they did really well. Tama Tonga and Tongaloa, Chase Owens, all three of them, who I've never really been impressed with previous to this. I thought that all three of them, it was obvious that they all tried their best. Tama Tonga actually had a great match with Kazuchika Okada. I don't know if you saw it or not, but that match was great. But the crowds play a part in it. However, I think New Japan's downfall more has been their booking and injuries. Like you said, Kota Ibushi,
Yeah.
you had Ospreay get hurt with, I believe it was a partially broken neck, and even Okada
Yeah.
earlier this year had the two slip discs in his back. So you had that along with everything else that just doesn't create a good atmosphere. Plus, Evil's title reign is known by many fans as the worst title reign of all time for New Japan, or at least in the modern era.
Yeah, it's not been great to say the least. I mean, Gado for years, right? He's not been a good booker. I know it's a bit unpopular among some, but for years and years now, I've been honest about his booking. I've not been a fan of it remotely. He won Book of the Year for quite a few years, I believe, off Dave Meltzer and the rest. Well, sorry, not Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer. I mean, we could go on about their fan base all day, but let's not. But yeah, it's not. His booking is awful a lot of the time. Now, giving Shingo the belt after Ospreay got injured is one of the better decisions they've done. That was, I was surprised by it, and it was definitely the right choice. They needed something fresh. Like, Ospreay was given a title as something fresh, and they'd obviously built him up for it, but it was something fresh still. So as soon as he dropped it, it was like, oh god, it's going to go back to, Naito, Okada. We've seen it a billion times before. Ibushi, who the fans, were hating at that point. I think by the time he comes back from his injury now, he'll be loved again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think giving Shingo the title was a fantastic decision. And Tyler Miller has said here, the AEW Rampage reviewer for Wrestling Public, crowds make wrestling what it is. Like CM Punk's return would have been low-key boring without fans. Now, that actually puts us directly into our first opinion of the day. Second, actually, but what was meant to be our first. And this is controversial. The AEW fans are going to come right back at me again, because apparently I'm biased and I'm a WWE mark. But here it is. Honestly, AEW's booking of their shows has become repetitive, and they are relying on the shock debuts rather than actually creating compelling storylines that keep fans invested in the product. Now, recently, I've noticed this more and more. Now, throughout the pandemic, I didn't, and the Daily Place era, I didn't think that this was as big of an issue, but now it's becoming more and more obvious. And I think that is in part because of the size of their roster. But storylines are not getting enough time per week. They're not interesting enough. I know a couple of storylines do at once, like for example the Jericho and I completely forgot what they're called.
The Pinnacle.
What's it? But they did as well.
Oh,
But
America's Top Team.
America's Top Team, that's the one. When Paige Van Zant's getting more TV time than Darby Allin and MJF, it's not great. I just realized Josephine has said here, I agree, too repetitive. Carl's given his opinion on you, Kota. Honestly, Kota, best looking man I've seen.
That's only because Carl's not here.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, what's your thoughts on all this? What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with me?
So I see the repetitive part. I think that the bigger problem is that a lot of the feuds go on too long. So you had the Pinnacle and Inner Circle feud, which I don't know if it did, but it felt like it went on for a year. And that, to me, I don't feel like a feud should ever go on like straight through a year. You can break up the feud. Like Hangman and Kenny did not feud for a year. Their feud has been off and on for about a year. So I get the repetitive thing, and I do agree on the relying of shock debuts. I want to get back to Tyler really quick, wherever he said that CM Punk's debut would have been pretty boring if there wasn't fans, and that is so true because Christian's return at the Rumble, I marked out for. I loved it. However, I know a lot of people didn't because there were no fans. So he is 100% right in what he said there. But MJF is really the only person who, throughout his time in AEW, has felt fully relevant to me. There are times where I felt like Darby hasn't been relevant. There's times where I felt where Jurassic Express hasn't been relevant. Kenny has been pretty relevant, but I consider him like one of the top stars already going into AEW. So, are you there? No, you're not there. Cool.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Cool, right, we apologize, guys. Technical issues. I'm currently staying in a hotel. So, there's all sorts of issues there when it comes to the Wi-Fi. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. But thanks for staying. We still got quite a few viewers here. That's great. So what you were saying about CM Punk, and it's that's my issue with stuff, right? AEW, all the excitement behind it for the most part over the last 6 months has been debut after debut. They're bringing in names after names after names, and it's just to the point now where I feel like they're bringing people for the sake of it. Like certain names on that roster, we've got in Tony Nese now. Why? Like, I'm not being funny, but like from his point of view, why? I think he could have probably gotten just as much money in Impact than he is getting for where he is on the card in AEW. And, he's not yet. He'd be treated and booked a lot better. I'm sorry, maybe not treated.
He'd be featured basically every single week in the X Division.
For sure. Oh, him in the X Division, that'd be fantastic. And out of interest, anybody who's still in here, what happened when our connection went? Because I didn't actually...
So I kept talking about... Did you hear me talk about MJF or no?
No. So I'm not sure if the screen went blank for them because I lost connection. So I'm hoping that it's Karen showing you and it's not me, but I'm worried that's not what happened. But So, Tyler Miller here has said AEW is getting repetitive. However, the Hangman Page storyline they're doing is the best storyline in wrestling right now. And I disagree. I think the Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar one does top that. I'm a huge fan of this Roman Reigns storyline in general. I know Joseph, our AEW Dynamite reviewer, is going to go nuts at me for that. He's not a Roman Reigns fan, but I don't understand how you can't like it. They booked it to perfection, and it feels like a child again watching wrestling with a storyline. Oh, so that's fantastic. So I just found out it was just me which went for you at work, which is great. Means we can still clip this, but somebody said Eric Novak here has said, if you haven't watched Eric Novak's interviews on the All Real Wrestling podcast, make sure you go and do that. He's got ones dropping soon with quite a few big names. He's just had one drop with Nick Aldis. You need to be checking that one out. Bobby Fish as well too, who's another name who's just driving AW. So make sure you go and check him out on the All Real Wrestling podcast YouTube channel. And we also cover his articles exclusively first on WrestlingRepublic.com and on the Wrestling Republic Instagram page. But yeah, people are saying here as well, they're pointing out Moxley hasn't been relevant. Tyler's just said Moxley is the most poorly booked main eventer. Can you disagree with that? I don't think you can.
Not at all.
Moxley over the last, he's just not been interesting at all over the last 6 months or so. And even maybe a bit more than that. Like, since he dropped the title, it's honestly just been mid-storyline to mid-storyline. Now, because of the GCW stuff, I honestly don't think he gives a shit. But still, you know, it's not how you'd expect somebody on the wages Moxley's on to be treated.
I'm thinking that he's going to turn heel. I'm thinking that that's especially so. Whenever I went to AEW in Miami just a couple weeks ago, the show that featured Dante Martin against Malachi Black. Dante Martin's exceptional, by the way. I just want to shout that out. Moxley came in and he just acted a bit heelish, and the promos that he's been cutting recently, he's always cut promos that have been very edgy, but it's felt more like hardcore, like I'm just here to beat people up type of thing. And I think that that's going to result in him being maybe not a heel, but much more heelish than he was, especially like when he first arrived or when he was champion.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are saying as well, Moxley's New Japan stuff recently hasn't been good as well. And I haven't actually seen too much of it, but I've seen a couple of his matches. I think I maybe have seen. Has he only had 2 since the pandemic on Strong?
I haven't watched Strong. But if you're referring to not Strong, I just rewatched the 2019 G1, and Moxley was awesome to me. And I don't know if he's referring to Strong. Maybe he is, but
yeah. And Aaron has said here, the one thing he liked was Moxley when he faced Japanese talent, and that's true. That was interesting in that. But
for sure.
I mean, again, it's relying off other names coming into AEW. It's not booking any storyline. It's and that's the entire thing with this American top team angle as well. Like, it's tiring to me. AEW phenomenal roster, and they're not booking any compelling storylines other than maybe Kenny Hangman, which has been a storyline they've been booking for a long time now, which isn't a bad thing at all. But it's not like a new storyline which they've just built up. Mm-hmm. So they haven't really done any new building of storylines for ages with proper talent who are there. Now let's get on to your first opinion of the day, Kota.
Yeah, so my first, honestly, Charlotte Flair leaving WWE would hurt them more than they realize. Now, I know that a lot of people absolutely love to crap on Charlotte, saying that she's massively overrated. She's booked her. She's always in the main event scene. She's in every single big women's match ever. And that is true to an extent. But one, it's because she's extremely talented and one of the best, if not the best, in my opinion. I would put her second to Io. And 2, she has been booked absolutely terribly. I understand that she's always in the main event scene, but that's the problem of her booking. When Roman Reigns is in the main event scene all the time, back in 2015 to 2018, people hated him. They took over his matches. They booed him. He got worse treatment than Cena in most matches. But WWE's over-reliance on Charlotte Flair would hurt them in the end, because we saw whenever she got hurt, or I forgot what it was, but she was out for a decent amount of time, then it felt like the women's division kind of was lacking something. And that whenever she returned, it's not that she fixed the entire women's division, but it added another name to the main event scene because they've created a few women's stars more than people realize. They've created Rhea, they've created Bianca. I mean, they had Nikki Ash as champion. I personally don't agree with that, but I do enjoy her. I do enjoy the gimmick. Also, when Charlotte was in NXT in 2020, according to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, she was the top ratings draw for NXT that year. You also can include the ratings draw? Yeah. She's had classics with Becky at Evolution. That match was probably the best last woman standing match ever. She's had the classics with Banks on Raw and pay-per-view. Her WrestleMania match with Asuka, her matches with Rhea like at WrestleMania Money in the Bank were both incredible. So I think that she's a bigger star than people realize.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I know maybe that's not entertaining for the show, the fact I'm not, arguing with you about it, but no, I totally agree with that. Charlotte, and I've been saying it for years, and I've been saying about Sasha for years as well. But Charlotte has consistently been phenomenal in the ring, and that's why she's one of the top stars. She's phenomenal on the mic too. She's got the it factor about her. She's got that look. And I mean, like, can you argue with them putting her in the main, keeping her in the main event scene like that? And don't forget this entire situation. I'll repeat in a minute in case you guys don't know. Basically, I'll say it now quickly. Basically, Charlotte the other day during a segment with Becky Lynch on SmackDown, they were meant to swap the titles. Now, what was meant to happen was, Becky was meant to try and grab the title from Charlotte, but Charlotte would keep it. Then Becky would pass hers to the referee. The referee would take Charlotte's, and then they'd pass them around. That was what was meant to happen. What actually happened was Charlotte threw her title on the ground. Went down horribly, was an absolute mess, looked really awkward. Everyone was like, oh, this is a bit weird. Didn't think too much of it. Pros, not much thought went into it. Until a couple of days later, and there's more and more coming out about it as, we speak. But basically, that was not meant to happen. Charlotte got pissed off. She wanted to lose the title instead of swapping. She wanted to lose the title to Bianca Belair earlier on in the week on Monday because she rates Bianca Belair. Which says something about Charlotte as well. The fact, she doesn't want it to be all about her, in fairness, right? Because a lot of these articles are going, against Charlotte. And I'm not saying what's right or wrong here. I don't know the situation. I'm not, I'm not there. But, I mean, it speaks volumes in a way that, she's willing to drop the title like that. But, somebody's Take It to the Table has said here, great show, by the way, on the Wrestling Public YouTube channel. Make sure you check out his show every week. Charlotte is the new Triple H back when he was the World Heavyweight Champion.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, let me know whatever. No, I'm sorry. I can't agree with that. Like, I understand that she's booked terribly, and Triple H is an amazing pro wrestler. I might be one of the only people who thinks that, but I think he's amazing. However, that reign was completely awful. Everything about it. Everything about that time, I'm not personally a fan of. So for you to say, and Triple H was featured way more than Charlotte's featured. Like, Triple H was in every single big segment. He was main eventing pay-per-views. Charlotte hasn't really main evented any pay-per-views that I'm aware of, unless I'm forgetting one.
Recently, no, she hasn't. Yeah,
so,
recently she hasn't.
I don't think it's that bad. I can see why you think that it's bad, but I don't think it's that bad.
No, and I mean, with Charlotte as well, right? So the situation is now she's getting a lot of heat backstage, and allegedly, and apparently Sonya Deville was ready to fight her. I'm going to be honest, right? I've heard hundreds of these situations, hundreds of similar things about different wrestlers over the years. What usually happens is either over text or on Raw tonight or something like that, it gets resolved, nothing comes of it again. Dirt sheets run wild for weeks saying, oh, is she going to AEW? AEW confirmed. Maybe she'll tweet something teasing it just to, stir the plot a little bit. Mm-hmm. Likely nothing will come out of it. There's the media blowing stuff up like they always do.
Plus, she has years left on her contract.
Yeah, she has years left on her contract. There's a report today that she's trying to get out of her contract. She's not going to get out of her contract. WWE will not let her go. There's ways of her getting out of it, as if she did something very controversial, but for her to do that, AW likely wouldn't want her anyway. And people are saying, well, she's trademarked Ashley Flair. She trademarked that in 2019. It's, it's nothing major. And somebody says to you, Ashley Flair is all elite. I can never see that happening in 1,000,000 years. Well, maybe that's a bit dramatic, but she's got more years left on her contract. Vince won't want to lose her. And I'm going to be honest here, I don't think she wants to leave WWE at all. I think this is just, it's a power struggle in the women's division, perhaps, between Becky and Charlotte. Well, maybe Charlotte and a few people from the sound of things. But still, I mean, I don't think any of this will come. They'll probably do a bit of a meeting in the women's division, address the situation, and water under the bridge. It happens in wrestling all the time. When you're on the road, as long as these guys are, these issues happen. And yeah, it usually is just the media blowing things up out of proportion. But I'll move on to my next opinion now. Honestly, NXT 2.0 is more entertaining than NXT had been for the past year. Now, this is controversial, I'm aware, but I truly believe it. Since NXT 2.0 has, started, I've been watching every week, and I've been interested. Interested to see these new characters. And I think an element of that is the fact that I'm thinking these guys could actually succeed on the main roster. I'm interested to, see how they're going to get on. But NXT, since it became a brand of its own, and for the first few months, it was great. But actually, no, it wasn't. For the first few months, they were just trying to go head to head with AEW, and were going, it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't good at all while it was on USA, because they kept at first trying to go head on head with, AEW, which doesn't work. And we said about it at the time, it didn't work, and viewer wise, it definitely didn't work, as we saw. But I mean, the booking just wasn't good anymore. It was just, I can't believe the change that happened. They went from some of the best booking in the world in wrestling, right, to absolute mediocrity within a matter of weeks. It was pretty much like a week. It went from 1 week being on the W Network, top stuff, next week being on the USA Network. And I think as I said a minute ago, the main reason for that first was because they were trying to counterbook AEW so much. But once they stopped that, they never really got their booking back. And admittedly, a large part of NXT was always the crowd, and the pandemic did not help that, right? You can't ignore that. But I honestly think NXT 2.0 has been more entertaining. And a couple of people here are saying Carmelo Hayes is a top star. He is a top star. I interviewed him a couple of years ago and said he was going to be the top star. It was between him and Lee Moriarty to be the breakout star, or the the one to watch for 2021, as voted for Wrestling Republic. And Lee Moriarty won marginally in the end. And look, Lee Moriarty is now in AEW, and Carmelo Hayes is in NXT. Val saying Tony D'Angelo, he's been fantastic. In ring, I think his attire needs a slight change, as I don't feel like his ring attire does his lock enough justice. I don't know, maybe he needs to dye his hair black or something and grow a bit more facial hair, something or other. I don't know, something's missing. But when he takes off his hat and that, he doesn't look as gangster as as part of the mafia as I'd like him to be. And somebody said, Tyler said, the biggest reason NXT 2.0 is so much better is more people of real character, and that's another fantastic point. And yeah, I mean, I can agree with that completely. And I know, Kota, you're the one who's been reviewing NXT 2.0 for Wrestling Public. So you've been, analyzing these segments week in, week out. What have you thought of the product?
So I used to go to NXT tapings quite often before it went to 2 hours. And those tapings were some of the most fun that I ever had. I saw Undisputed Era versus Mustache Mountain live on NXT TV. That famous 5-star match. That match was amazing. And the crowd was amazing. However, when it went to 2 hours, something just changed. And I'm not really sure what it is. It's almost indescribable. Like you said, they tried competing with AEW. And the match quality was still there to a point. But it just didn't feel the same. It didn't feel like NXT began feeling like almost a hardcore fan base. Kind of like how AEW is, only a little more geared toward WWE. I guess you could say that. I think it's gotten more toxic ever since the pandemic started and we have the CWC now.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. There's many problems with the CWC, including a situation that came out this week.
I'm gonna. I'll quickly interrupt you just for a second. MSK getting booed. I don't see why. Allegedly, according to multiple sources, and I want to make it clear, allegedly. And I'm being very. I don't like this. I don't like this going around, but it's gone around, right? So I'll repeat it because I'm going to be honest. Everyone has probably heard it already, but apparently, Izzy's parents, the Izzy, the NXT fan, apparently her parents don't like MSK because one of them said Izzy was too young to train at 13 years old. Now I'm going to give my 2 cents. I trained at 15 years old. It should not have been legal. It shouldn't have been. Yeah, it's not a good environment to be in at that age, and it hurts like hell. It really does. So I trained. I was at 15. So what the MSK member said was correct. It is too young. But what the rumor going around is that now, because they don't like MSK, they got people in to boo them. And then that's been spreading around. And in the CWC, they moved Izzy's parents around to, try and get them not on the hard cam. And I don't know. I mean, the fact that more reports are coming out about this now makes it more believable. But it just seems a bit weird to me. But who knows?
But anyway,
carry on.
So I do think, as the reviewer of NXT 2.0, that it has definitely improved the product. Not in ring quality. I believe Val said it earlier. I think it was him. That it has not improved the in ring quality. In fact, it's probably downgraded a little bit, especially considering the amount of squash matches. However, match quality is something that you're not going to remember unless it's like a 5-star match. So I think that it's more important to work on the future instead of working on the now. And that's what they're doing with NXT 2.0, with all the new characters, all the new segments. I mean, you got Duke Hudson, who's a poker player. You got Lash Legend, who basically has her own talk show. It's not like a normal WWE talk show. It's like she actually is a talk show host for something separate than wrestling, even though she is a wrestler. You have Tony D'Angelo, who's kidnapping producers and stuff. I think it's genius. I love everything to do with Tony D'Angelo.
I do as well. I just in-ring attire needs to be sorted for me. I'm sorry. There's something, it just doesn't fit in with it. I don't know. It feels like it just looks like a jobbers attire. And I feel like
it has to do with the style of like Italian, New York.
No, I
Chicago.
know that, but I still think they could do a better job. I think they could dye his hair black, have him grow out a little bit of a beard, and just, I don't know. I know that's what they go in for, but it seems too generic the way they've done it. They can just do subtle things to make him look like a real badass. Yeah, I don't know. There's something missing there for me right now, and I don't feel like, I just know that on the main roster he's not going to like get over backstage with the producers with that. Like, that's the issue I'm having.
They'll probably put him in the 24/7 title scene.
Yeah. But he should be a huge star. Like, that dude, he's over as hell, right? How many people? Velveteen Dream, I think, is the only one. Maybe a name we probably shouldn't be mentioning. But other than him, how many, PC, people who've been developed by the PC have come in and straight away got that over? Anyone?
I can't think of anybody.
No, I can't think of anybody gotten over that fast. He came in on one vignette, and we were all, who is this guy? Let's see more of him. He's a natural at it. The gimmick's unique. It's great. I can't wait to see more of it. But yeah, I mean, they've created more characters now, made them more interesting. Now, when the first takeover comes of this new era, which currently isn't planned, I mean, surely it will be at some point. But when that comes, that'll be the real test to see what, will be the plan with that going forward. But yeah, as of right now, I have no idea, how that's going to go. But that will be the real test at the in-ring action when a takeover comes along. But they have a bit of time to develop. Now, this moves, this blends in perfectly to your next opinion.
Yes,
do you
it
want to go ahead
does.
with that?
I will gladly. Honestly, Braun Breaker is not the guy to beat Tommaso Ciampa. Now, I know that Breaker has been featured way more than any other new star in NXT 2.0. And that's why he doesn't need to win. He's already a star. Everybody has already said how much this guy has to grow. He doesn't need this win. the title should go to somebody who needs it to solidify them as a future star. Now, I wrote down a few names, and any of them could be it. You could do Tony. You could have Ciampa hold the title for a long time if you want, because Ciampa is still great, and he can hold that title until they figure out the perfect person to lose to. You can have Tony D'Angelo win it if you make him more legit. You can have Zion Quinn win it, who does need a new finisher because I can't stand his Michael Tarver Superman forearm. Odyssey Jones, he has shown a lot of personality. He's very over every time he comes out. And finally, Carmelo Hayes, who somebody mentioned earlier, he is fantastic. He's so over with the crowd. They chanted at the end of MSK, their 4-way tag title defense, they were chanting, "We want Mello." They were chanting for either team left in the ring. So that shows how over Mello is. And I think that Breaker should be the one to beat Mello for his title. I'm also a fan of faces beating heels and heels beating faces. So I think that works better.
I
You
wouldn't have Breaker beat Ciampa. Well, no, right now. I'm not sure though if I wouldn't have him beat Mello though either. Unless because then they had to find a way to stop Mello from being over. Because otherwise, I feel like that could go bad. I personally perhaps would have Breaker beat Ciampa, but in about 9 months' time. So I'd have him lose now, do like a railroad redemption arc, and then have him win the title. Because Breaker is a star. And do you know how old he is?
I do not know how old he is.
23.
That's crazy.
That dude is money. You've got to be, and this is why I'm kind of annoyed they've given him a title shot so early. I understand why is to bring eyes to him, but still, 23 years old, and like he's got so much potential. So you don't want him to get Roman Reigns reaction here. You want because he could be a huge star on the main roster. He should be a huge star on the main roster. He should be the next top guy. He's 23 years old. He could be on the main roster by the time he's 25. There were easy 15 years at the top of the main roster. We spoke about this before in the last one of the first Honestly Wrestling Sucks episodes, and that is that WWE are not building up stars who are really young, and that's the issue. You can bring up somebody and they're like, well, they're not being booked properly. Well, they're 38 years old. I'm not being funny. If you build everyone up who's 38 years old, by the time they're 43, they'll be, over. Maybe some people might know them in the mainstream, whatever, and then they retire a couple of years later. If you bring someone in at 25, by the time they're 30, a lot of people will know who they are. By the time they're 35, they'll be in the mainstream. They got 5 years then of being in the mainstream and being a top guy in WWE. And we've seen this with, multiple people over the years, John Cena included, Batista, so many, right? Brock Lesnar. I know his, journey was a little different because of, he left. But this is why they need to be building up young talent. And of course they did it with the Shield. They did it with the Shield when they were, they were the last ones really to do it. And, the last top stars really WWE have built up who've stayed there, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns especially because, he's the guy. And he's doing a great job of being the guy too. I said that a bit funny there as if, it was an insult to him. It's not. But, there's always the guy. And that guy is Roman Reigns right now. But Braun Breaker could be that next guy. And I mean, probably should be. And there's quite a few other guys in NXT who are like that too. I don't know the age of Odyssey Jones, but if he's...
I know he's in his 20s.
Then he could also be a top guy because he is over.
And they have people who I have not been impressed with personally, like Von Wagner. I know that Trevor, going to the girls, I know that Trevor asked earlier how we felt about Cora Jade. I haven't been impressed with Cora Jade at all. I know that she's, I think 2-0. I think she beat like Frankie and somebody else. I'm not sure who. But I'm not personally impressed with her. Tyler mentioned Gigi Dolan. I think that Gigi could, I hate her name, but I think that she could be a future main eventer for TakeOver. I think she's amazing. So there are names that haven't impressed me, but there are tons of names that are young and have, like Odyssey, like you just mentioned.
Yeah, and I mean, Cora Jade, I haven't seen too much of her, to be honest. What I have seen was on the independent scene, for the most part. I've seen a little bit of her in NXT 2.0, but some Tyler Miller is here saying Gigi Dolan is the next big thing. She's been having bangers on the indies for quite a few years now. It feels like years, actually. It feels like years and years, but it obviously isn't because she's still young. But she could be huge. And that entire Mandy Rose faction, I was a bit like at first, what is this? This is the most generic thing ever. But they've been getting over, and they've been, I mean, the women's division in NXT 2.0, I'm going to be honest, is weaker than it was in NXT. But hopefully they can build on that. Because, it's got potential. And I'm liking the Mandy Rose stuff they're currently doing. Raquel Gonzalez, has done a phenomenal job, I think, but she's becoming a bit stale now. But, I mean, her match quality and stuff, like, people don't realize, like, she was on the top of the Wrestling Republic database rankings for this year for, like, the first, 6 months. Like, people don't realize how good of a year she has had in terms of, actual match quality as well. But, and yeah, somebody's saying your Toxic Attraction is the next big thing, absolutely. But, I know some people are talking about a certain spot Gigi did on the Indies.
Yeah, she did.
We won't get into that here. But, and Eric Novak is saying here, Trey Baxter hasn't impressed me yet in NXT.
That's Blake Christian.
Yeah. Fair enough. He hasn't really done too much in NXT. But Blake Christian on the Indies.
Yeah, if you want to see a great Trey Baxter match, if you have Impact Plus, he had a phenomenal match with Ace Austin earlier this January in the finale of the Super X tournament. I forgot what they call it, but some tournament that it was incredible. And he is the boyfriend or fiance something of Cora Jade. So I haven't really been impressed with either of them. So, but I'm sure they're great people.
Yeah, I'm sure they are as well. Oh, okay. I saw something in the comments. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, with NXT, going back to your point real quick about Braun Breaker, how would you book him from here to the main roster?
So that's a little difficult because we did just have the draft. And I don't think that you can put him in a big position at WrestleMania for the very simple fact that Gable Steveson is supposed to debut at WrestleMania, apparently.
Yeah.
So you can't I don't think that you can have both Gable and Braun if you want to make them both big stars debut at the same event, even if it's 2 different nights, because people will be comparing the debuts, and the one that's more impressive, they'll get behind, and the one that's not as impressive, they're not going to get any reaction probably going forward. It's probably like a carrying cross type of situation. So I do think that you have to, first of all, put them on different brands. And Gable's going to be on Raw, at least, I would say, for the next 6 to 18 months, I would guess. That means that if you want to bring up Braun at some point, you have to put him on SmackDown. So I would say, I personally would have him beat Carmelo Hayes for the North American Championship. I would have him be in the Rumble, eliminate like 2 or 3 people, but not go up to the main roster. Just be like an NXT representative, just so people get eyes on him. And he looks great. He eliminates people, maybe even a big name, maybe a former world champion or something, maybe like Jinder Mahal. And he then loses the North American Championship in 6 to 8 months and comes up at the following draft and have him win the mid-card championship right away. That's what I would do, just so that, because it used to be the Intercontinental Championship was the stepping stone to the world title. And I think that they should start using either the United States Championship or Intercontinental Championship like that again, like they did with Lashley. He went straight from U.S. Championship to 8 days later WWE Championship. So I think that would be good for him in terms of like a stepping stone. However, after that, I don't know how you book him, but I want to get to that point eventually where he'd be like 25-ish.
Would you give him, though, before then? Would you give him before he gets called up the NXT title?
I would not. I would give him the North American Championship. I would not give him the NXT title because I don't think he needs it.
Yeah, I completely respect that. I don't, to be honest, if I wasn't going to give him the NXT title, I don't know if I'd give him the North American title unless he held it for like a year, was undefeated, and relinquished it. Because I wouldn't want him to lose a mid-card championship, then go up to the main roster. I wouldn't want that to happen. But I can see why you wouldn't want him to win the the big title, because if he doesn't win that, then fans won't be going, oh, he's overrated and all that.
Exactly.
I personally probably would, and I still think that maybe give it to him in 9 months' time, or something like that. Maybe having beat Ciampa or somebody else if they've, if Ciampa's lost it by then. Somebody not is over.
Now I do think there's a good chance that he wins it. Is that tonight or tomorrow night? I do think there's a good chance that he wins the title tomorrow night. What? You don't think so?
I hope not. He might, but I really hope not, because that's Roman Reigns' treatment. Unless they turn him heel straight away. But they need a new top face. They need a new top face.
I definitely think that he is the top face for the brand. I think that he should be.
But not even just for NXT, for WWE, they need a new top face. They need to make Roman. I don't. Well, actually, the rumor going around is that Roman's not going to drop the title until after WrestleMania 39. So
that'd be 2.5 years, right?
Yes, that's another year and a half or whatever. That's after that, because apparently they're doing Roman versus The Rock for the WWE Championship then, or the Universal Championship,
because they want to do it in LA.
Yeah, and also The Rock's busy this year as well, which was, and somebody saying that's too long in my opinion, and yeah, I mean, maybe it will be. I mean, it's difficult. Another year.
I mean, listen, I'm wearing Roman's hoodie right now. So I have zero problem with him holding the title for 2.5, 3 years. People know I love this Roman gimmick, but I mean they've got to find a way to make it interesting. That's all I'm saying. If they book it well, then it could work. But if you're holding it for that long, somebody, and this is actually the point at his reign now, they need to decide who's going to beat him for it, and it needs to be a young star. Braun Breaker would be perfect to be. I would not have a problem with that. Yeah, but they need to build him up now for it. And they need to be careful. They need to make sure they get fans on his side now. And then they need to probably call him up. Honestly, genuinely, you could call him up at next year's SummerSlam. So it's still another year away. That's, or nearly another year, or just under a year away of him being in NXT. Call him up then. Have him, do well until the Rumble. Actually, I wouldn't have him win the Rumble. But then I'd have him win Elimination Chamber or whatever to earn the shot. Because I don't want, Rumble sometimes can get, hate or whatever. Or maybe because Roman by then people be so tired of, they won't care anyway, maybe. But I'd have Braun be that guy. Because he's young, by then he'll be 24, maybe 25. WWE Championship. The only problem with that is that The Rock is supposed to face Roman at 39.
Sorry. Yeah, no, of course. SummerSlam then, or whatever, or you could even have it before, so you could do it on a normal pay-per-view, honestly. You could. You don't want it to be super predictable, too. So, a month.
The pay-per-view after The Rock. That would be fine.
Yeah. No. You know what I'm thinking? Pay-per-view after The Rock. Roman's got the momentum, just beat the Rock. Breaker beats him.
Breaker's undefeated to that point, yeah.
But I'd have Breaker lose the title quite fast, within a few months.
Okay.
So the fans don't turn on him, and I wouldn't. I don't think I would lose it clean or anything. I'd have some heel shenanigans or whatever that whoever he loses it to. Maybe somebody like Tony D'Angelo. Well, maybe not, because if he's still over that point. But a heel like that, and a young heel too, because that's what at that point they need to be really focusing on the young talent WWE.
You do also have Austin Theory on the main roster. He is also there, and I predicted that he's going to be a future youngest world champion ever. Guarantee you.
Big words. I mean that could be Austin Theory would be perfect for that as well. So you could have somebody win Money in the Bank. Braun Breaker holds it up for a month or so, or maybe 2-3 months, right? Loses it, gets cashed in on. He then chases after it. Something else happens. I wouldn't give it back to him straight away. I'd get him maybe somebody else brings in the feud that they get annoyed, and then they feud. Because I don't want Braun. I don't want the fans to turn on Braun too quick because they need him as a top face. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can do with him, and I mean, the future's bright for Braun Breaker, and a lot of these talent in NXT. They are young, they're fresh, they're original, they got character.
Yep.
Now, if WWE waste them on the main roster, then NXT's ruined. This is NXT's last shot. That's the truth behind it. They shouldn't ruin them now because these characters are perfect for the main roster. They've served them up on a silver platter for them, as long as they give them a bit of time to develop. The future looks bright for NXT 2.0. Now, thank you for joining me today, Kota. It's been a fantastic episode. It's been great to be back with all of you. Thank you for all of you guys who've been active in the comment section today. We love to see it. And we will see you again soon. I don't know when. There's not a set date or whatever for this podcast. It was going to be maybe a one-off, but I'm kind of feeling it. Not going to lie. I'm kind of enjoying being back. I'm a bit more chilled out than I used to, strangely, be about this. But yeah, I'll see you guys again soon. Thank you for joining us.